Right. Before we unpack the real reason King Charles allegedly waited years to finally drop the hammer on his brother Andrew, hit that subscribe button and ring the notifications bell because UK Informate is serving up the royal secrets that explain why justice sometimes moves at the speed of constitutional bureaucracy, and you absolutely need to stay tuned for this. So here's a question that has been bothering absolutely everyone. If Prince Andrew's connections to Jeffrey Epstein have been public knowledge for years, and they have been properly documented, endlessly scrutinized years, why did King Charles only just strip him of his titles now? Why did Andrew get to keep his prince status, his Duke of York title, his 30-room mansion, and his royal lifestyle for so long after the allegations became impossible to ignore? It feels overdue, right? Like showing up to put out a fire after the entire building has already burned down. But according to a new report, Charles was not dragging his feet out of family loyalty or institutional cowardice. He was waiting because he needed to do this properly, through royal channels, without creating a constitutional mess that would haunt the monarchy for decades. And honestly, that explanation makes this whole saga even more frustrating because it means the system itself was protecting Andrew, even when the king wanted him gone. Let us establish the timeline here, because it matters enormously. The accusations against Andrew first came to light 6 years ago. 6 years. That is not ancient history. That is recent enough that most of us can remember exactly where we were when the scandal broke. Virginia Giuffre made her allegations. The Newsnight interview happened and became an instant car crash. Andrew stepped back from royal duties. The civil case was settled with a reportedly multi-million-pound payment. And through all of that, Andrew remained Prince Andrew, Duke of York, living rent-free at Royal Lodge, maintaining his titles and royal styling. The public watched this unfold with increasing fury, asking why a man accused of such serious misconduct was allowed to keep the trappings of royalty whilst everyone pretended this was somehow acceptable. But now, finally, Andrew is no longer Prince Andrew. He is just Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, plain old Andrew, stripped of the prince title that defined his entire existence. The announcement came after he had already voluntarily given up his Duke of York title and other honors earlier this month, which at the time felt like too little, too late. But the removal of his prince title, that is the palace going nuclear. That is Charles saying this is not a temporary stepping back or a polite distancing. This is permanent severance from royal identity. And here is where the timing gets interesting or suspicious, depending on your level of cynicism. The move coincides almost perfectly with the release of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous book, which details fresh claims about Andrew, including allegations of an orgy with 8 underage-looking girls. For people already skeptical about royal accountability, this timing looks like reactive damage control rather than proactive justice. It looks like the palace waited until the scandal reached critical mass again before finally acting, which raises the uncomfortable question. If Giuffre's book had not been published, would Charles have acted at all? Or would Andrew still be Prince Andrew, living comfortably at Royal Lodge, waiting for everyone to forget? But according to Us Weekly, there is more to this story than simple procrastination or protective instincts. The report claims King Charles had been planning this move for quite some time, but had to navigate complicated legal and constitutional processes before making things official. This is crucial context that changes how we understand the delay. The British monarchy does not operate like a normal family or even a normal institution. Titles, honors, and royal status are governed by centuries of precedent, constitutional law, and protocols that cannot simply be ignored because they are inconvenient. Charles could not just wake up one morning and decide his brother was no longer a prince. There are procedures, consultations, legal considerations, and constitutional implications to every move the monarch makes. According to the report, Charles needed to consult with members of the royal family before proceeding. That alone probably took months. Can you imagine those conversations? Sitting down with William, with other senior royals, explaining that he was going to strip his own brother of his titles, asking for their input and support, managing the family fallout whilst also considering the institutional implications. Then layer on the legal complexities. How exactly do you remove a prince title? What authority does the king have to do that unilaterally? What are the constitutional ramifications? These are not simple questions with obvious answers, and getting them wrong could create precedents that haunt the monarchy for generations. When fresh developments in the Andrew scandal emerged with Geoffrey's book, Charles apparently opted for the quickest available route to remove Andrew's titles from official records. Rather than asking Parliament to pass new legislation abolishing the dukedom completely, which would have taken significantly longer and pulled parliamentary attention away from more pressing government matters, Charles chose to handle it directly through royal warrants. This is genuinely clever. Royal warrants allow the monarch to strip peerages and honours without requiring an act of Parliament, which means faster action and less constitutional drama. It is the royal equivalent of finding a shortcut through bureaucratic red tape, using ancient powers that most people forgot existed to achieve a modern objective. Think about what this means practically. If Charles had gone the parliamentary route, drafting legislation to abolish Andrew's dukedom would have required debate in the House of Commons and House of Lords. MPs would have argued about it. The media would have covered every detail. The whole process would have taken months, possibly years, and would have turned Andrew's disgrace into a prolonged national conversation about royal privilege and accountability. By using royal warrants, Charles achieved the same outcome with immediate effect and minimal constitutional fuss. It is ruthlessly efficient, and it shows Charles understands how to wield power strategically rather than just symbolically. But here is the uncomfortable truth lurking beneath all of this. Even with the best possible interpretation of events, Andrew was protected by the system for years. Whether Charles was genuinely waiting to navigate legal complexities or simply hoping the problem would disappear, the result was the same: a disgraced royal living in luxury whilst his victims waited for accountability. The constitutional processes that required consultation and careful legal maneuvering are the same processes that shielded Andrew from consequences for far too long. The system that Charles had to work within is the same system that enabled Andrew's continued royal status despite public fury and credible allegations. Andrew has now been ordered to leave his 30-room mansion at Royal Lodge, which adds practical consequences to the symbolic stripping of titles. Thanks ever so much for watching, everyone. We will catch you in the next one.